Cidades são como sistemas complexos que vivem de interações e de trocas. Permitir que as pessoas façam suas próprias escolhas em relação ao lugar que moram, trabalham e se divertem faz parte da natureza dessas interações. É possível planejar e controlar esse sistema complexo? Há como o planejamento urbano negar as interações de mercado? Qual a importância da propriedade privada para as cidades? Como as cidades brasileiras se encaixam nesse contexto?
Cities are not designed by urban planners, they are designed by the people who live in those cities and who are entrepreneurs or who work for the entrepreneur. This is sometimes difficult to accept to many of my colleagues who like cities very much. They feel that there is much more in a city than just going to work and going back home at the end of the evening. But we have to recognize that all the things we like in cities, whether it's going to concerts or to restaurant or meeting our friend in a cafe, all this, or going to a museum, all this is possible only if the labor market is working. The labor market is in fact the foundation of all the things we like in cities. The day the labor market collapsed for, it could be several reasons, everything, all this superstructure, cultural superstructure that we like is collapsing at the same time. But how does this labor market work? First, we have to recognize that the important word in labor market is market. That means that people are free to move from one job to another, to change job easily, and employers are also free to hire within the city the type of people who are the most relevant to their business. The second thing is, where do they locate themselves within the city? And that again is a very important choice that urban planners cannot anticipate, because each household is making trade-off between location in the city, therefore access to job, but also the consumption of land and the consumption of floor space. These are things that are trade-off that are peculiar to every household. There might be also other reasons for a household to select one location rather than another. My last point is about regulation. The regulation are imposed very often, and have been imposed long ago by planners who thought to redesign the city. They thought they were in good faith. I don't believe in conspiracy. I think they were in good faith, but they designed regulation because they wanted to design the city. It was not to separate, incompatible use, really. It was to design the city. So, for instance, they will have, high density, high FAR, high building in one part and another, and these were very, very arbitrary. So I think that our role is to do I'm not against regulation, by the way. I think some regulation are absolutely indispensable, in particular fire regulation or sanitation regulation. But any regulation which regulates the consumption of floor space and land, I think establish a rigidity which prevents the development of the city. I will give an example. In every city of the world, including the richest one of the main problems is housing affordability. There are not enough housing, and especially not enough housing for the indispensable people who are working, the most, let's say, labor work, So imagine if you have a city where some people are starving. Does it make sense that you put a regulation saying now it's forbidden to eat less than 2,000 calories a day? This is exactly what our regulations are doing. They are saying the minimum floor space for an apartment is this. If you are living in this part of the city, you have to consume at least that much land. You know, the market will consume less land. This is what the floor ratio is doing, obliging you to consume more land and more floor space. So again, let us get back to common sense, audit those regulations, remove the regulations which are not useful, but some are certainly useful, but we should, for every regulation, we should find what is their use. If nobody can justify their use, remove them. Thank you very much.
Some of you might have heard about my concept. It's called the free private city. And a free private city is one of the most autonomous in this area. It starts when it goes to internal autonomy. On the left-hand side, you have liberty-focused intentional communities, so people who are like-minded individuals that just settle together. Maybe they set up some rules, but they have zero legal autonomy from the state laws. And you have special economic zones. You have one in Brazil, in Manaus. They have different laws to some degrees. Then you have charter cities, an idea of the Nobel laureate Paul Romer, where you have a little bit more autonomy. And then you have in autonomous regions within nation states, special administrative regions like Hong Kong and Macau. And then you have free private cities that have even larger autonomy from the state. And finally, sea states on the high seas, which are subject to no state sovereignty. So why is this? Because I think their governance as a service is the new coming thing. It may be some generations to unfold, but we can see here development. So more and more people are thinking, isn't government just a service? And I want a good service. So yes, it is. Government is a service, and it can be done, therefore, by a private service provider. And that is the idea of free private cities that are based basically on a citizen's contract, a real social contract, a written service contract, protecting your life, liberty, and property against a fixed fee. And now what can we do about that? Most urbanists are in agreement that we cannot continue like that. And the idea is to go on smaller scale. But the problem is that this might work for single buildings, but if you want the whole fabric of a city to be as it was in the past, in ancient times, in times of the Renaissance, old Europe, then the whole system has to be changed. So let the market make decisions. Let small scale, small people make their decisions, how they manage their street, their houses, their quarters. And not big real estate developers according to big zoning plans, which are a big political issue. So how is a free city planned? This is a real life project. We have normally a core, which is a little bit master planned because we have to be attractive, otherwise nobody is coming, right? So chicken egg problem, we have to do some initial infrastructure, but the more you go to the outside, patterns can emerge by themselves. You have only street, room for streets are there, but everything else is left open. So the more you go from this core to the sides, the more spontaneous order can happen. And for the existing or for the prefabricated core, we have a kind of a system that is imitating a potential 100-year development. How did cities develop over time? And especially it accounts for all kinds of complexities in human natures because it's market and price driven. That means people will pay for beauty. They will not necessarily pay for functionality only. And that means you will automatically get a different kind of city than if it's master planned and approved by politics. And allow these with as less regulation as possible, as more market transaction as possible, like air rights and all kinds of new ideas where people can pay for what they want instead of getting a top-down solution from the government what they have to want. And in so far, we will also learn, but I think the city of the future will more look like the city of the past than the city that we have now. And if you're interested in all these ideas, I've written a book called Free Private Cities, Making Governments Compete for You. It's also available in Portuguese. And if you're interested further, Google the Free Cities Foundation to find out more. And I hope that I can see some of you in one of the future free cities. Thank you very much.
Quando a gente fala, por exemplo, do ministro da Fazenda, a gente tem um ministro da Fazenda, a inflação começa a subir, o que a gente fala? Tem que mandar ele embora, é um incompetente, né? Algum problema no meio ambiente, tem que mandar um ministro do meio ambiente embora. A minha pergunta é, por que a gente vê isso e não acha que está errado os nossos planejadores? A gente tem pessoas que falam que o problema é o dono do carro, e não o problema do planejador que está pensando nessa rua. Ah, é o problema do carro. Então fala para o cara que está no busão lotado que o problema é o carro. Ele está preso lá no metrô, ele está preso, não funciona. O sistema de transportes no Brasil não funciona. E é por quê? Porque sistema de transporte, pessoal, é resultado. Se alguém chegar e falar assim, a solução para o transporte é não sei o quê, aí desconfia, não existe solução para o transporte, porque o transporte é justamente o resultado que nós temos da forma como nós estruturamos a cidade. Se você tem problema no trânsito de uma cidade, o planejador urbano falhou miseravelmente para pensar aquela cidade. Ai, Adriano, mas a gente precisa planejar a cidade, senão vai ficar aquela cidade feia, aquela cidade horrível, vai ficar parecendo um Morro da Providência, aquela coisa horrível. Olhem para essa foto, que ninguém gosta de ver, e me digam, por que a gente acha isso feio, mas acha isso bonito? De boa, vou voltar. Jogo dos 7 erros. O que é isso e o que é isso? É a mesma coisa. Qual que é a diferença das duas fotos? Só tem uma diferença. Pobreza. É só isso. O problema aí não é espaço. O espaço está sendo usado da mesma forma. O espaço urbano utilizado aí é o mesmo. Né? E aí é engraçado porque se existe favela no Brasil, é porque a gente deixa muito caro o uso do solo. O pobre não consegue ter um lote regular. Ele não consegue emitir 19 documentos, esperar 300 dias. Ele não consegue comprar um terreno que muitas cidades falam que o terreno mínimo tem que ser 400 metros quadrados, com recuo de não sei quantos metros, e no final das contas ele só pode construir em 50 metros. Fica muito caro um imóvel desse. O pobre tem que ir para a favela mesmo, porque infelizmente é lá que os recursos que ele tem conseguem entrar. E muitas das vezes é o problema de regulação urbana, o nosso licenciamento urbanístico é extremamente, podemos dizer um nome que o pessoal gosta de dizer, está na moda, fascista. Odeia pobre, quer que ele vá embora da cidade, porque pobre é feio. A gente já teve leis, chamado de leis de desfavelização, que jogavam os pobres para fora da cidade. A propriedade privada é o verdadeiro princípio regulador. Se tem alguém que pode regular a cidade, é a existência de propriedade privada, porque com propriedade privada você tem preço, com preço você tem incentivos, com incentivos você tem concorrência, você tem trocas voluntárias, você tem todo um processo econômico que nós, de forma errada, chamamos de mercado, como se fosse um monstro, um Godzilla que invade a sala gritando, o mercado, aquele monstro malvado, e que na verdade somos nós. O mercado são as pessoas. Então, por favor, governantes, arquitetos, urbanistas, parem de atrapalhar as pessoas. Eu quero terminar remetendo aqui a nossa Alice nos País das Maravilhas. Se ela encontrasse com o gato na Pinheiros, por exemplo, o gato em vez de em cima de uma árvore, ele estaria em cima de um viaduto, e eu quis colocar ela dentro do Peugeot preto que está ali na foto, mas era muita sacanagem com a Alice colocar ela dentro de um Peugeot. Então eu coloquei ela só do lado de fora. Se ela fizesse a pergunta para o gato de qual caminho eu devo escolher, qual que seria a resposta do gato numa cidade como a nossa? Ele ia falar o seguinte, mesmo que você soubesse o caminho, tanto faz, você vai ficar preso no congestionamento. Muito obrigado, pessoal.